Hey Soul Company, Merry Christmas. We are in the last day of our Christmas Perspectives week, and so today we will be considering the story of Jesus and his birth from the perspective of the Wisemen. So we'll be reading about that in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. So that says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, wise men from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star at its rising and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked them where the Christ would be born. "In Bethlehem of Judea," they told him, "because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly summoned the wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him." After hearing the king, they went their way, and there it was, the star they had seen at its rising. It led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overwhelmed with joy. Entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country by another route. So, in this passage, we see two different reactions to the birth of the Messiah, Jesus. So first we see the reaction of King Herod, the chief priests, and the scribes. And the birth of Jesus actually caused them either to be really indifferent or to be filled with fear. So we see in verse 4, the chief priests and the scribes, they become aware of the birth of Jesus, and they're filled with apathy. They don't really care. They're not traveling with the wise men to go see the Messiah. They just keep going on with their lives. Or we see in verse 12, and later on in the story, Herod is filled with fear of the birth of Jesus, and he's filled with so much fear that actually later on he commits mass murder just to get rid of Jesus. So that's the first kind of reactions, either apathy or fear. And then we see the reaction of the wise men to Jesus. And it's actually a really beautiful reaction. First, they ascribe authority to Jesus by calling him King of the Jews in verses 2, and several other places in the text. Second, we see them ascribe dignity to him by falling before him, a baby, in worship. And we see that in verse 11. Third, in verse 10, we see that in both of these descriptions, there's joy. They are so overwhelmed with joy, is what the text says in verse 10. And lastly, they ascribe worship to Jesus through sacrificial gifts, through the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And with these gifts, the wise men, they're telling Jesus, "You are my treasure, not these things." So on this Christmas Day, Soul Company, how can God take the truth of this text and the example of the wise men to awaken in us a desire for Christ himself? Maybe that looks like taking some time today to ascribe authority and dignity to Jesus and doing it being overwhelmed and full of joy. Like I said before, Merry Christmas. Hope you guys have a wonderful day remembering the birth of Jesus.